Why are there so many classified listing websites? I mean, CoStar owns everything. And in every market, in every regional market, internationally, there are so many different websites on how to find a place. What's going on?
Yeah. You look back. So I used to be at a REIT called Essex Property Trust. And when I first arrived there, we had our infrastructure set up to list our properties at 60 different listing sites at that point. Syndication platform, yeah. And you look back at the history of the formation of this space and the formation of the classifieds business. And what you saw was this massive rush into it. And there was a business model that was predominant at the time, which is success fees. So we send you a lead and you pay for that, or we send you a lease and we pay for that. Lots of frustration, lots of cheating with that business model. But ultimately, a lot of small players were able to establish them. And a lot of platforms like Essex were able to list very broadly because the property management software made that possible. So it really lowered the bar for entry into that space. You fast forward into the post-Craigslist era, and CoStar, Zillow, RentPath have really rolled up most of the market. You have the two kind of challenger brands, the Zumper and the Apartment List. But those are really the only 5 major classifieds platforms, even though folks are feeling like there's others out there. Renters will experience one or another. They're on, Street Easy in New York, and they think that they're on a separate platform, but they're really on Zillow. So that's the experience that a lot of renters have without transparency or really digging under the hood to understand which platform they're using. They think they have a lot more choice. But the reality today is there's relatively little choice. By the time I left Essex, the overwhelming majority of our properties were on one platform. And that platform changed from time to time as different platforms offered different value propositions. We had the whole thing on Zillow at one point, and then we had the whole thing on apartments.com. And we, test out some other things from time to time, but it's a very different market from that standpoint than it used to be. And, into that universe, all of the infrastructure is still there to allow something like Dwellsy to exist and tap into that legacy syndication technology. So that's been super helpful to us. But it's hard to get people to sign up for something new, especially when they've been conditioned to get rid of all of their partners as the cost has gone through the roof. So that's been a very, one of the challenges that we've had to navigate.
Yeah, Jonas, it's exciting to bring you on because marketplaces are a huge part of PropTech. Mm-hmm. And it's refreshing to see a company take a different approach. Are you able to comment on the different types of marketplaces that exist today? And by that, I mean, there are certain marketplaces that focus on short-term renters who are looking for corporate furnished rentals. I get pitched startups all day as an investor that focus on these niches. There are marketplaces outside of the rental asset class, and the marketplace might be finding industrial space to rent, finding storage space, finding office space, marketplaces themselves. And here is someone who's grown your marketplace to a significant scale. You have I don't know if you're able to share numbers, but you have an enormous amount of traffic. You have a lot of listings, and you haven't scraped any of your listings. What insight do you have for other founders who are focusing on other marketplaces? What are your learnings building a B2C focused marketplace?
Number one, be really sure you want to do it. It is not easy. It is. If I had half an idea of how hard this was going to be, I don't know that we'd be here today. So a certain naivete was necessary in order to get started and go after this. I think there's room for a lot of different types of marketplaces in the space. This is an enormous business. There is so much money spent on real estate in so many different ways. This is one of the biggest areas for consumers where they have an unmet need today. And there's always going to be a room for the mass market, super broad marketplaces like Dwellsy that serve a really broad range of folks. And there's also going to be needs for somebody who wants a short-term furnished rental to have a bespoke marketplace that serves their need. So I think there's opportunities for marketplaces of all different scopes and scales. And I'm happy for folks to be going after that. It's hard. And the question when you get started is always supply or demand, and that has so much to do with the individual founders, what they bring to the table. Do you start with supply? Do you start with demand? Ultimately, you've got to get both of those going, and you've got to find a hack to get that working. And once you find that, hopefully, that'll clear the way for you to grow it. But you got to focus on marketplace dynamics. That is the first thing we focus on every day. And the thing that we focus on making sure works is, are the marketplace dynamics working such that renters and landlords are having a good experience on Dwellsy? And if they aren't, we immediately course correct to fix it and make sure that they are. But that is an everyday obsession, because ultimately that's the core of value creation in any marketplace.
When we dissect a marketplace in PropTech, I'll come up with what I think are the top 3 most important things. And I'm curious to see if you disagree or you agree. I'm not going to even be bold enough to rank the top 3. I want you to. But I would say user experience is very essential. I would say the customer acquisition. How are you going to get customers, and eventually the monetization model? Do you agree? If I were to force you to pick 3 of the most important characteristics of a marketplace, and you can look at it from your perspective as founder and CEO of Dwellsy, would you agree with those 3? How would you rank them? Would you change them? Would you add anything else? Would you subtract?
I think having the marketplace activity, which I think was your number 2, more or less, I'm paraphrasing a little bit, is really the ball game. Without that, you've got nothing. And Craigslist and others have shown us that if somebody can get what they need to get done on a platform, they will forgive UX. It helps if your UX is really good, especially in this day and age when people expect things to be beautiful and professional. I see things happening every day where there's an unmet need and people are finding the answer to that need, and it's not beautiful and it's not perfect. And there's a willingness, God knows when we first launched Dwellsy, it was not that good, but we had inventory that people couldn't find anywhere else. And that drew them in and brought them back and had them transacting on the platform. And so that made a difference. Look, we're 3 years into this thing and we're starting to focus on revenue now. I think with a marketplace, and one of our partners calls this a 2004 business in many ways, because we're really focused on building a marketplace and understanding that if we are the marketplace at the center of $550 billion of transactions each year, we're not going to have to worry about revenue too much. There's lots of different potential sources of revenue once you are in that position where you're facilitating a market that large. So revenue to me would be 3rd on that list. Yeah,
interesting. I read a book recently. Reid Hoffman's one of the co-authors, Blitzscaling. Have you read that book?
I have, yeah.
To summarize, it sounds like there are times in certain companies' journeys where they have to just blitz scale, which basically means spending a crazy amount of money inefficiently to create, dominant market share. Feels like, and that playbook is applied to Uber, it's applied to Airbnb, many marketplaces. I think it's a marketplace-centric type of strategy. Do you feel that's the approach that's needed to create a marketplace, or can you grow it organically and slowly and carefully?
Yeah, I think you have to know where you are. And you have to know what's needed, and you have to look really hard at, what's happening around you. We are in a market in PropTech where I don't know that blitzscaling applies quite as much. The reason for that is look, this is a very thoughtful industry. I think a lot of people criticize property owners and managers for being slow to adopt new tech, but they're in many cases, very, very smart and thoughtful about being slow to adopt new tech. And the reason for that is because this is people's homes you're dealing with. You want to put a lock that's remotely controlled on somebody's door. You want to, completely change how somebody interacts with their home. That's a really big deal that requires really careful thought. So I think that property managers, everybody always wishes everybody else would move more quickly. I think property managers are really smart to move patiently and thoughtfully. And so, I don't know the blitzscaling strategy always works in an industry like ours. Now, there might be other places where it makes sense. And, I might decide that we need to do some blitzscaling strategies for Dwellsy at some point in the next few months. Who knows? I think this is an industry that really appreciates people who take the time to do the hard work and explain things and really work through the issues, because it's a complicated
Byzantine industry that works in a unique way.
And a lot of the reasons it works the way it works are not bad at all. They seem bad to outsiders looking at it, but they're actually protective of the folks participating in the ecosystem, both renters and landlords in many cases. So I think you just have to be careful about that kind of strategy. But look, there's a time where you say like, okay, it's time for us at Dwellsy to go out and get every single renter in the country on the platform.